Hello, I'm Eric Russell. I was a volunteer with the Enfield Municipal Facilities Committee, and I'm happy to be here with you today to get a tour of the Enfield Police Facility with Chief Holland.
Hi everybody, let's take a walk into the Enfield PD. First, let you know that this building was built in 1992. It was originally housed the police department and several divisions of public works such as the water and sewer, zoning and planning. In 2002, the Enfield PD took over the whole building at that point. So let's go ahead and take a look inside.
All right.
So this is the lobby to the Enfield Police Department. This addition right here was made in 2020 through some grants from the federal government. This is a low-grade bullet resistant. It also helps with a barrier between people walking in and to the Public Safety Administrative Coordinator, who is currently Emily. Emily serves the Enfield Police Department, the Enfield Fire Department, and the Enfield Ambulance as Administrative Coordinator. Her being located here at the PD does create somewhat of a confusion for some people, because while she's immediately here at the Enfield PD to help us administratively, the Enfield Fire Chief and the Enfield Ambulance Chief need to come to the Police Department to get that administrative support. And when a civilian, somebody wants something with the ambulance or the fire department, who aren't 24 hours, a lot of times there's questions of where do I go to get that administrative support for non-emergency stuff. Obviously a public safety facility would co-locate that all together, so there wouldn't be a question about where do I go to get things such as a burn permit, or when can I burn, when can I not burn, do I get billed by the ambulance, stuff like that. Is obviously much better served our Enfield community if it's co-located. So here we are in the lobby area of the police department. As you can see, this is our storage room slash half kitchen. It houses a sink and a microwave, and then all our administrative supplies are crammed in there as much as we can. Storage is definitely a major issue within this building. The other part of the kitchen would be over here. As you can see, we have a refrigerator and a toaster oven. We have a file here. Actually, Emily, can you get me a file from 2002, the May file, please?
Sure, Chief.
This is our secure files, in the fact that they're behind locked there. It's definitely not within CJIS compliant or best practices for law enforcement. We are trying to digitize as many files as we can, but in law enforcement, there are certain files we just can't digitize that have to stay paper for a certain amount of time, even up to 20 and 30 years, depending on the nature of what that file is. Ideally, these files would be in a file room that would be able to be secured away from any of the public that comes in. The Enfield Police Department is obviously, the town of Enfield owns this building. We try to make our conference room available when needed. This is also the Emergency Operations Center for the town. And so multiple jurisdictions and multiple agencies can be using this building in the event of an emergency. And so everybody who gets buzzed in through the door ends up walking by these files. And to be CJIS compliant and federal and state best practices, they would be in a file room that wouldn't have access to, would have controlled access.
One.
So this is our part of our IT area.
So what's the computer and the devices being charged?
So the devices being charged are our body cameras. Enfield PD was one of the first agencies in the Upper Valley, I believe the first agency to have body cameras. And so unfortunately, when the building was built in 1992, it didn't have future IT in mind. And so as you'll notice as we go through the building, it's patchwork throughout the building, IT. This is our server for the police department.
Should the server be out in the open?
No, it shouldn't. To be CJIS compliant, it should be, again, located in a secure area that only limited access to that. It falls into the same 1992 construction, not IT in mind. This is currently the only location that we can get our IT people to put it and have it properly tied into the networks that it needs to be tied into.
So which room are we in now, Chief?
So this is our conference room / emergency operations center. As a conference room, it's adequate to hold 8 to 10 people for a meeting. Other community groups use it sometimes, library trustees, has been known to have selectmen in here, such when other conference rooms are not available, they can come and use this. But more importantly, it's our emergency operations center. And that is used in an emergency for the town when we activate the emergency operations center, major storms. We activated for COVID, where we had to work with multiple agencies and multiple, not just the Enfield agencies, but outside agencies. This is the center hub of where the emergency services and town services will all function out of to continue to respond to a major event, such as, again, a weather event or, God forbid, a terrorist attack or something like that.
Yeah. So operating emergency services out of this room, I don't see a lot of communication or technology in general, either phones or smart boards for keeping track of information.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. To be an adequate and a good EOC, we should have multiple phone lines. We should have the radio capabilities in here, even television and satellite and stuff like that, so that we can gather other information to, smart boards. Currently, right now, we have one phone line in here. We don't have the capabilities of condensing all the phones into the same phone line to answer that. For radio use, we have to actually have a second person, because Emily's radio at the PSAC position will man the radio, and so it does make it ineffective as an EOC. It's also not quite large enough. If you imagine we had members of leaders from the fire department here, the ambulance, the police department, DPW, state, Homeland Security, all the crammed in here, plus people coming and going to get information and give information, that it becomes ineffective.
And also, I noticed officers walking through the doors we were touring earlier. Are there challenges for the department having officers walk through this room during meetings or in the event of an emergency?
Yeah, there absolutely is. A ideal emergency operations center would be located in a location that, one, would have easy access from the other departments. Right now, when we have those, the fire department and the ambulance and other people that come have to be buzzed through the front door, but also the Enfield police officers, they're still responding to emergencies. They're responding to domestics, and we go to, being the 24-hour emergency services Enfield, we go to the med calls and we go to the fire alarms and stuff like that. And so you imagine you're in a library of trustees meeting in here, and we get a hot call. The officers are running through this to get to their to cruisers and stuff. If you're having a confidential meeting in here that needs some privacy, the door can be locked, but that means that the officers responding, if they're leaving the patrol room, have to go out the side door around the building to get back to their cruisers. So it does definitely create a delay and could create a issue for the people having the meeting and also the officers responding.
Chief, I got that file for you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think I can do this. Take these things off so I can see what I'm doing. All right.
How should I phrase my question to him, at least standing over there, about the efficiency? So Chief, how long have we been storing files in the attic?
Since the building, since 1992, when the PD moved from the library over here. I will say the construction companies that have come and evaluated the buildings have told me, that the roof trusses are not made for storage. And so we are digitizing as many files as we can. Just unfortunately, there's certain rules on how long we have to keep paper files and certain other files.
And what's this room behind me?
So the room behind you is the patrol room. It's an adequate size for our patrol officers. Now this is where they do their reports and sometimes they'll eat their lunch and stuff like that.
And if the conference room was being used, is that the door they'd have to use?
Yes, so this is the exit they have to use. This is also our ADA compliant, American Disabilities Act compliant entry and exit to the building. So that's the ramp that, as you can see, is itself in not great conditions. So now we're on the bottom floor of the police department. This was originally the evidence room for the PD, and so I guess the best thing is just to show it to you. It's no longer the evidence room. In 2020, we did a remodeling that I'll show you in a minute, but as you can see, it's really not much bigger than a walk-in closet.
And what do I see in the corner here?
So that is our armory. That's where we house the police department ammunition and firearms. It's not compliant because it's while we have a secure cage for the ammunition and the firearms for the Enfield PD, the walls are not compliant because they're sheetrock, and so if there were to be a fire, that would definitely be a major hazard for the fire department or somebody coming in that would a new facility would definitely, the design would have a proper armory for the storage of that stuff.
Yeah, when I think of an armory, I also think of officers maintaining their weapons. Where do Enfield's officers currently maintain their weapons?
So currently they do it at the conference room table or at their desk, and you're absolutely 100% right. To be compliant, even a compliancy, the chemicals that are used to clean the firearms, even the lead and stuff like that comes from the firearms, you should have a separate station to, one, house those chemicals, and two, be able to clean up and not have to clean your weapon at your desk that you may eat your lunch at, later on. So yeah, absolutely. It is just for the safety and the health of our officers. We should have a proper armory with someplace for them to maintain, department weapons.
You call it, what do you want?
We're gonna show so in here is our, again, a continuance of what we were talking about upstairs with the IT. This is 1992 to 2022, kind of that piecing together the changes in technology and requirements that police departments have to maintain digital evidence and stuff that you didn't have that in 1992. And so you can see the early technology going through, and it's just the building wasn't built for future IT in mind. And then behind you is the locker rooms, and actually right immediately to your left you'll see the only other storage closet for the whole department. And then we do have a male and a female locker room. There is no bench or anything for somebody to sit down and change.
I see another one of the yellow locks.
Yeah, so unfortunately we don't have the storage for as many firearms as we're required to maintain by the courts and by the law. And so what we have to do is we have to take some of the lockers in the locker rooms, both in the male and the female. I think we have a total of 5 lockers right now that are just dedicated to firearms evidence storage. So we obviously have to keep them separate from firearms that the PD, the firearms and ammunition that the PD owns, because they're tracked and labeled as evidence. And due to the court rules and state laws now, some of those we have to keep for quite a while. We just don't have enough storage space, so we have to take some of the lockers from the locker rooms to do that. And this is the female locker room as well. Again, it has, you can see where the yellow locks and no bench or anything for somebody to sit down and change. And then we do have a bathroom down here for with a shower for an officer who maybe ends up getting muddy or you know, getting some bodily fluids on them or something like that. We do have the shower for them to, you know, take a shower and change. So.
Is there any space to clean clothes that may have been contaminated?
No, nope. We have to bag them separately and send them out to be decontaminated and stuff. So we're gonna hit the road this way. So this is our new evidence room. We did this in 2020. Obviously our other evidence room that I showed you wasn't adequate for storage. This is approximately 3 times the size of the previous evidence room. And it's the largest we could get. In the construction, we wanted to make sure we were compliant with the rules and regulations, and so this is as large as we could get without making sure we maintain the size of a quarter we had to have.
I mean, we're in the evidence room.
That's the old evidence room. This is the new evidence room now.
Through here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this evidence room was built out of a prior Sally port. Were there impacts on the department of losing the garage space?
Yeah, absolutely. The one, we lost the ability to store another vehicle in here, or any large item that needs to be seized, or sometimes certain projects that we were working on for the PD, we would work on them in here because we had that space to work on it. And the evidence room took up, you know, this whole Sally port. And unfortunately, the evidence room, now there's 3 times the size. Due to requirements nowadays, it's already inadequate sized. It's already full. I'll show you the inside, but obviously for you know, security reasons, it is a well-built evidence room. We did a good job. It's sprinklered. It's alarmed. It's constant video surveillance, but it's just not adequate size for a town like Enfield and our department for what court and law requirements for holding that evidence is.
And I see the door back here. I noticed we came down the only stairs in the building. If someone did need accessibility access, would they have to exit that door upstairs, go all the way around the building, and re-enter through this door down here?
Yeah, absolutely. They'd have to enter through this door here or through the garage door on the other side. And there, again, it's kind of a little bit of a jockey to get through there and come through here. Same thing with if we have to. If our other Sally port is full, if we have to bring somebody through that's in custody, that we have to bring them through here as well. And I'll show you that when we get to that point. So this is our processing room. This is where anybody who is taken into custody and is processed, they're brought here to be processed. This is our holding cell and our processing station and our temporary evidence storage that is then transferred to the evidence room once it's properly documented and tracked. In here, we definitely have a few issues. The holding cell will only hold, it's large enough to hold 2 or 3 people, which ideally if they're getting along is great. If they're not getting along, it creates an issue where you have 2 people that want to fight each other and you're constantly putting them in arm's distance of each other, and so we can't run into that issue of do you have enough officers? Do you have to bring another officer in to help deal with that situation, because we don't have more than one holding cell.
What would you do in a situation if there was both an adult and a kid involved in a situation?
Oh, great question. So by state and federal law, a juvenile and adult have to be held sight and sound apart. And so if we have a situation where we have a juvenile and an adult, we have to call in another officer, either another Enfield officer that's off duty or get mutual aid from another town, and they have to take the juvenile and bring them up to the conference room, and they have to process them in the conference room and wait for an adult to come pick them up. We don't have, in some of the more modern facilities, there are definitely ways that are built that you can have them sight and sound apart from each other and not be, great distances. Unfortunately, the design for here isn't adequate for that. So, you want to hit the, before we hit the...
Oh, as I'm looking at your interview room, I believe you told me it was, I see a lot of tape on the wall and the door.
Yeah, so that's another great example of the lack of storage within the police department. Sometimes we have to seize evidence or large quantities of stuff that needs to go to the lab soon, and so we don't have a place to store it, and so we'll use the interview room for temporary storage. That's why you see all the tape, so we can do proper evidence tracking and stuff like that. And that's a prime example of a lack of storage a secure storage within the building.
All right, fire.
Well, I'm glad I wore my left boots for this tour.
Yeah. So this, the last part of this tour is our salary report. This is the one that we have left. The other one obviously was converted to the evidence room. You're sitting in a puddle because, so originally when the building was built in 1992, there was a drain. Unfortunately, that code back then, the drain went right to the river. That's obviously not acceptable, and so that was filled in several years ago. And so in the winter time, 3 to 4 months of our year, anytime we have a snowstorm, we'll bring cruisers in to make sure that they're ready to go in an emergency. So unfortunately, as the snow melts, it creates a puddle, and so we have to squeegee this out anytime there's an incident like that.
And you mentioned in the evidence area that took over the other salary port that we can no longer store vehicles there, so they have to be stored in here?
Yeah, that's correct. So if we seize a vehicle for a search warrant or it's evidence in a crime and we have to hold on to it, this is the only secure place we have to hold on to it. We don't have a impound lot out back or anything like that. And so just within the last snowstorm that we had a vehicle in here pending a search warrant. And so during that storm, the officers had to, if they had to come in for something and deal with it, they had to go back out, make sure they scraped off their windows and cleaned the snow off of their vehicle because we only have the one day. It's definitely not a best practice. We want to, again, as I talked about before, we respond to the med calls, we respond to the fire calls, and of course, law enforcement emergencies and patrol. And so we want to get there as quick as we can. And even in best case scenario now, we can only have one cruiser in here to keep the snow off of it, and if we have a call that requires multiple units to respond, the second unit can't go until they get the safely, they can go safely by getting the snow and the ice off of the vehicle.
Well, thank you for the tour, Chief.
Thank you. It was very interesting.
Thank you.